Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin now.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin now.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
And hello there, and good day to all of you. I feel like I've been sitting in this chair for 4 or 5 hours. I was at a summit this morning, and here I am back on air, and I just love it. I am very excited to be here with these two artists that are my guests today. One is an author, the other a singer-songwriter. Both are amazing storytellers. And if you've ever wanted to write a book or become a songwriter, then you are in for a real treat. And my guests today are Mike Dellosso and Scott Krokoff. Now, if you're thinking how lucky it is that these guys are able to have the time to indulge their passion to write, let me just say, they both have day jobs and families who demand attention. Before you meet them, we are going to talk about, as always, the United Nations Global Goals. And today is no different, except that today I have an update for you. So as well as aligning the show with the United Nations Global Goals, I'm also giving it today's good news story. Now, they have a high-level political forum on sustainable development happening right now, like from July the 11th through to the 20th in New York City. The United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development is the essential platform for guiding global efforts to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals adopted by all member states. Remember, that's 193 countries that they all decided and approved in September 2015. Now, this year's forum is the first one since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. And that means that they are going to include voluntary reviews from 22 countries, thematic reviews of the progress that they've already made toward the goals. And I have to tell you that some significant progress truly has been made. And to draw attention to it, they are highlighting the work done in one country toward each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals every day from July the 4th until the forum, which concludes on July the 20th. Tomorrow, Thomas Gass, he's the head of the United Nations Economic and Social Affairs. He is actually hosting a Twitter chat tomorrow morning from 8:30 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So if you are interested, if you have something to say, if you want to know more about the global goals, I'm so excited that we get to participate in that. And I'm really excited about Korea, because they have been very busy defining and working on global goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. Now, in 2016, the Republic of Korea launched its Safe Life for All initiative, and it builds on the goals to make the world safe and secure from infectious diseases. It also aims to support the enhancement of health security partner countries and proactively prevent infectious diseases, detect them as early as possible, respond rapidly to public health crisis, and much, much more than that. I've actually posted their Safe Life initiative on my GoodRadioNetwork.com website, and you can read the report, and it really is truly impressive. I'm so excited. Yay. It kind of reminds me of Containment. Anybody watching that new show? Ooh, that's pretty scary. Anyway, first I'd like you to meet Mike Dellosso. Mike is the author of several novels of suspense, 10 in fact, and these include The Hunted, Scream, Darlington Woods, to name a few, Fear Mountain, Centralia, and his latest, Kill Devil. Now, Mike is also an adjunct professor of creative writing. He's a popular conference teacher, a husband, a father. He was born in Baltimore, and he now resides in southern Pennsylvania with his wife and 4 daughters. And I'm very excited to meet him because, Mike, I have to tell you, Kill Devil was a page turner from the first moment I laid eyes on it. I'm just like,
well, good,
oh my gosh.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, glad you enjoyed it.
Such a great book. You know, I read a lot of books. I read maybe 3, 4, 5 a week, depending on the publishers, what they want to send me and who my guests are. And, you know, it's always like, oh, okay, here comes another book. And I'm excited to read. I love to read them. But yours was like such a delight, I have to say. Such a delight. Now, I know that you're with Tyndale.
So that makes my day.
Oh, good. And Kill Devil is, if I can liken it to a Jason Bourne kind of novel, your characters are, you know, involved in a spy and intrigue and government and all that kind of stuff. Now, I just wanted to say that I know that you're with Tyndale, and they are a Christian publisher. And when I was first offered your book, Kill Devil, from a Christian publisher, I'm like, what? You know? Yeah, they're planning mass destruction, and how does this fit? But you were able to cleverly insert your faith into the book, and it doesn't really feel out of place. So let me ask you, how important is it for you to write about God and faith?
For me, it's kind of the number one thing for what I do. I mean, I could write stories just for pure entertainment, and I hope my stories are very entertaining, and it sounds like they are, or at least you found it was.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for me, my faith is central to my life, and that goes for every aspect of my life. For being a husband, I work full-time doing physical therapy in people's homes, home care. And, you know, being a husband, a father, and that spills over into my writing. I can't not put my faith in there because it is central to my life, to who I am. So with the storytelling, I feel like I need to put it in there. For me, it's something, if it wasn't in there, it would feel like I wasn't being true to myself.
Okay, now I know that you have a master's in theology. And that's one thing that I'm going to talk about with both of you guys, because you have, you know, you both have several degrees, and maybe what you have a degree in isn't what your passion was, and maybe it is. But like you said, you have a full-time job, you do physical therapy in people's homes, you have 4 children, you've written 13 novels, I think, or 16. Now, how did you find time? Like, where do you set aside, do you put in a calendar and go, I'm going to sit down and write from 5 to 6 every day, or how do you do it?
Yeah, well, the short answer is I find time very carefully. And by the way, I have 5 kids now. We had a new baby born 3 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations. That's right, you did. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're all girls, too. 5 daughters.
No.
Yeah,
bless you, man.
It's a lot of fun, though. It's a lot of fun. What I did, you know, you have to just set time aside. I mean, I talk to writers all the time, and most writers trying to get started also have a family and a job, and the biggest struggle I hear about is finding time. Mm-hmm. And it's like I tell the patients I work with when I give them exercises, and you give me all these exercises, and the occupational therapist gives me exercises, and the nurse wants me to do this. And you find the time for it. The time is there. Mm-hmm. 24 hours in a day is plenty of time.
It's prioritizing, I guess. Yes.
You need to prioritize. I get up between 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. That's my writing time. I have to start getting ready for work around 6:30-ish. So, you know, that gives me an hour and a half to 2 hours in the morning that I can write. I can do my emails. I can do marketing stuff. I can do research for writing. And that's something I do 7 days a week. But you just kind of have to set the time aside. It's so easy to make excuses. It's easy to say, I just want to sleep in. But, you know, if you're serious about something, if you're, passionate about it, you will make the time. I tell people, we all find time to sleep. Mm-hmm. We all find time to put food in our mouths because that's a priority.
Right.
So you just have to set the time aside.
I'm going to ask you this question, and Scott, you can think about this question in the back of your mind too, and we'll come back. We'll touch on it when we speak to you in a moment. But you know, it's one thing to schedule your physiotherapy time or exercise time or meditation time, but creativity has its own time sometimes.
Yeah,
you know,
it does,
it's like, oh, I'm going to schedule and I'm going to be creative right now. You know? I'm a writer. I'm an author. I've got a couple, but I know what that's like, and it's not always on its own time. So do you, like, you know, I imagine like many people, you go through your day and you hear something, do you just write it down or record it and go, oh, that'll be great in my book. It's a good line. Or are you always on kind of thinking about it?
Yes, I am. When I'm writing, I'm always thinking about the book. I'm thinking about the plot. I'm thinking about the characters. Fortunately, with the job I have, I spend time in my car, driving from patient to patient. Sometimes it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes, but that gives me time I can think. So I'm constantly thinking about what's coming next. So when I sit down in the morning, I can just kind of jump right in, and I'm not sitting there staring at a blank screen thinking, okay, what comes next? But I know what you mean. It's, you know, with the arts comes the feeling of being inspired. And sometimes you just have to force it. I mean, you know, that's my time, I got to write. And unfortunately, I can't just sit down and write when I'm feeling it. Sometimes I have to force the feeling.
Right.
There's certain things. There's things you can do to kind of get the creative juices going. There's certain songs that I may listen to, or there's certain people I like to read that maybe, you know, just kind of reading a couple chapters will get me feeling inspired. You know, when I was in high school, I played basketball, and, you know, Michael Jordan was big. Whenever I would watch Michael Jordan play, I felt like, you know, going outside and shooting hoops. The writing's kind of the same thing, and I would imagine, you know, playing music is as well. You listen to those people who inspire you. You read the folks who just kind of get you going and feeling like, man, I want to do this.
Mike, it's a good place to stop you because we're going to a commercial break.
Go ahead.
So, folks, don't go anywhere. We're going to come back with Mike Dellosso and Scott Krokoff, and I'm your host, Frankie Picasso, and we're coming right back to Frankie Said Some More in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
No, we're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
It's merging never heard.
I always get a kick out of the warning labels companies attach to prevent lawsuits from the hooky-crooky of this world. A warning label on a dishwasher cautioned not to put any person in the unit. Speaking of dishwashers, one product warning on a television remote control read, "Not dishwasher safe." That's too bad because we know how dirty the remote control gets. In fact, we press the buttons even harder when we know the battery is dead. What are we, part of the ridiculati? A warning on a baby stroller read, "Remove child before folding." Here's one for the blunderbusses and popinjays among us. A label on a letter opener read, "Safety goggles recommended." Call me snarky, but any society that needs this many disclaimers has too many lawyers, pettifoggers, and snollygosters.
It's merging never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
When eating out, sushi is a wise choice. The Mayo Clinic says that most types of seafood are relatively low in calories and are full of nutritional benefits. The calories in sushi vary depending on the dish and how it's prepared. In fact, the same sushi dish may have a different nutritional profile when it's prepared by a different chef or made in a certain restaurant. This depends on the specific mix of ingredients. Generally, though, sushi can be included in a healthy eating plan. To reduce the calories in your sushi meal, avoid anything prepared with mayonnaise or added sauce. Begin your meal with low-calorie soup. Pass over the shrimp tempura rolls and choose the cucumber rolls instead. Be sure to order the sushi without any rice at all, because 1 cup of cooked white rice has about 240 calories. I'm Annette Hammond.
And we're back. I am Frankie Picasso. You're listening to Frankie Sense and More, and Mike Dellosso is up to bat at the moment. Mike, we were just talking about writing and writing on, you know, when you have to write, because that's the time that you schedule to write. I wanted to ask you, though, about the characters and the topics that you write about. How do you know about this stuff? Like, is it just research? I know I interviewed one author from Dellosso. She goes to the FBI Academy. Like, what have you done in pursuit of your art?
What I do is, along my way, you meet people in life. And if it's someone I think has an occupation or has a knowledge of something that's going to, come in handy for me, I'll keep their information, keep their email address, ask them, hey, if any time in the future I have some questions for you about law enforcement, about government, is it okay if I contact you? And people are always more than willing. So I have kind of a list of folks who are work for the government. They're in law enforcement. I know some guys who are Army Rangers. I do research online, but for these guys, I will contact them, and I'll send them some scenes and say, look, can you read over this, make sure the details are accurate? If there's anything that needs to be changed, let me know, or I'll just shoot them an email. If this guy was doing this, what kind of a handgun would he use? That sort of thing. So I have some people I kind of keep in my back pocket that they're fine with me contacting them and shooting them some questions. But a lot of the research is done online. The age that we live in is really good for writers, because in the old days you had to go to the library and do all kinds of research there, and now it's just few keystrokes, and you have the information of the world at your hands there.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it easy.
We, I didn't read Centralia yet, and I'm definitely going to go back and read it now, because Kill Devil was my first Mike book. But and you didn't need to really read it to read Kill Devil. It kind of stands on its own. But just to give the audience an idea, there's a family. There's a guy, Jed Patrick, and I think he's a character in a number of your books. Is he? Do I have that right?
No, just the two.
Just the two. Okay.
The two
and
Jed Patrick books.
So why don't you tell us who he is and what he's up against?
Jed Patrick's a former Ranger who signed up for a covert kind of organization that would train him to be a super soldier, so to speak. Little did he know that they were playing mind games with him. This is all in the first book of the series, Centralia. In Kill Devil, Centralia leaves off. He gets a new identity. He and his family are moved to a secret location. Kill Devil starts off where he's found, and little girl gets kidnapped, and Jed Patrick needs to get her back. So he has a very unique set of skills, but the whole time he's still kind of struggling with the mind games that they played with him, the brainwashing that was done. In Kill Devil, we see a whole new form of it that's really kind of on the cutting edge.
Right.
Here, and it's actually real.
He doesn't know what's real and what's not real when he's thinking things, so it's difficult for him to kind of traverse.
Right. Constantly wrestling with what's reality and what's not.
Yeah.
The thing I like about him is he's a family man, and a lot of times in these thrillers you don't find that. You find these guys that are kind of rogue, or they're single, or they're divorced maybe, but they're on their own doing their thing. Jed Patrick, he's a family man, and his family and his faith are he's kind of central in his life, and that's why he does what he does. And we were talking about the research and stuff, and for the characters themselves, I pull a lot from my own experience. And I consider myself a family man, and my family and my faith are kind of central to my life. So I pull a lot of the emotion from my own life. And what readers say is that really kind of resonates with them, that it comes off as feeling very real.
Yes, it does. You can tell that you're a dad. You can tell that your daughter adores you, and that you have girls.
Yeah.
I think that comes through for sure. Absolutely. Well, it's a wonderful book. And Scott, I don't know if you've read any of Mike's books, but I highly recommend it. I'm going to ask Karina to play The Right Place. Let's start with The Right Place, and then I'll do your introduction. Let's do that.
Know how the hell you ended here. Maybe it had to do with something that you feared. Maybe you made certain moves that weren't wise, and never turn up to something you despise. Maybe you took the path that everybody chooses, but it's not over, you can still pursue your muse at the right place, the right time. You just need the right place, the right time. Some days are so tough you think you lost your way. And when you're feeling so empty, it really kills. But don't you dare give in.
And there you go. That song is called The Right Place. And let me introduce you to Scott Krokoff. He is a practicing New York attorney who never gave up his lifelong dream to be a singer-songwriter. And so in doing so, he hopes to serve as an inspiration to others who have not yet fulfilled their dreams. And Scott plays Americana-flavored folk, rock, and pop. He's primarily influenced by his love of music from the 60s and 70s. And he weaves elements of folk, rock, and country pop into confessional and compelling Americana. It's so great. And his latest record, 2015's Realizations and Declarations, Volume 2, it received rave reviews from Bearded Magazine, who praised Scott's terrific imaginative powers. And the Vinyl District wrote his graceful tales of morality and perseverance. And while his music is in the vein of 1960s and 70s songsmiths, it's also recalling up the hot up-and-comers like Father John Misty. And that's from Pop Dose. Scott has opened for Ella King, Grace Weber, and he's toured from Vermont to Nashville, played in Belgium for his biggest fan, and received radio airplay throughout the U.S., Canada, and Europe. Welcome, Scott.
Hi. How are you, Frankie?
Hi, great. So great to have you here. I love singer-songwriters. I live with one. and I think you guys have very similar influences from, James Taylor, Paul Simon. I mean, who hasn't influenced anybody who plays, acoustic fingerstyle guitar, really?
Right. Yeah. No, there's no question about that. I'm definitely influenced by those two and others from that folky singer-songwritery era in the 70s, and I kind of do both. I have a lot of songs where in the Americana vein that I just kind of where I'm influenced by acts like like Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles and Tom Petty and Jackson Brown, and then I have that folkier side where I do a lot of finger picking in that vein, like James Taylor and Paul Simon.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And you are you from that era? Because you don't look that old.
No, I'm not from that era, and thank you for the compliment. Although the grays on my sides are increasing by the day. No, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, but I've always been a fan of music from that era. I mean, the Beatles are my all-time favorite.
Well, they're fantastic.
But I'm also a fan, big fan of an artist like Bruce Springsteen and all the other bands I mentioned, and artists like Van Morrison. A lot of stuff from that period. I'm really
But to me, there's nothing better than 70s music. It's just like to me, the greatest music ever written. It holds, the stands the test of time. And when somebody like you from the 80s and my kids from the 80s go and they listen to this and they fall in love with it, it's like, yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. It's incredibly timeless. I almost feel like in today's generation, it's almost like in some ways forgotten, and it shouldn't be, because it had. I agree with you. It produced some of the most varied and timeless music we have.
So let me ask you, a question like I asked Mike. It's a highly creative process, writing a song. You're an attorney. You have to go to work every day, I assume. When and where do you write?
I write in every nook and cranny left. That's kind of how I write, including sometimes when I'm at work, if something pops in my head, or on the train. Like you said, sometimes as you touched upon this earlier, there is obviously an inspirational aspect to creativity, with the rest being perspiration, as the saying goes.
Yes.
But things will pop into your head at any given time, and then it's like, where do you find the rest of the time? So like Mike was, he's an early bird, and he gets up in the morning, and I give you all the credit in the world for doing that, Mike, because I am not a morning person. 2 kids later, I'm still not a morning person. And I always struggle getting up in the morning, but I know people like that.
I'm a morning person.
Who set aside that time. I think it's a great thing. I used to be a nocturnal person. I'm not really nocturnal anymore. I'm pretty wiped out by that time of the day. So
yeah, it's hard for you because you are a musician, and musicians play at night, and you work by day.
It's incredibly hard for that reason. That's one of the challenges I face. I play earlier than I used to, but sometimes I inevitably either go to things or play, one of my own shows. And even if I'm playing early, before I know it, when you stick around and you're watching other acts and networking and all that, I'm still there late. And that's just the nature of that business. So yes, it is a challenge. And in terms of writing, I just, like I said,
I'm so sorry, because we are going to another commercial break. We have 4 of them during our show. So
no problem.
We're going to come back and speak to you, Scott. We have to, but stay tuned. We have some bills to pay.
We're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Close your eyes and imagine living your life without limits. Where would you go? Who would you meet? What would you do? During an Uncover Your Hidden Genius session, you will discover what's keeping you from living your life with purpose, passion, and fulfillment of your potential. You'll get a clear vision of the steps you need to take to uncover your hidden genius so that you can live a life without limits. Sessions can be done over the phone, Skype, or in person. Find out more at www.joycebufordempowers.com or by calling 903-287-0747.
How do you feel about double dipping? You know, when someone picks up a chip or a shrimp, dips it into the sauce, enjoys the taste, and then dips again. I've always been jubbers, that means suspicious, of the communal dip bowl. Refraining from dipping into a delicious crab dip might be too irresistible for an opsophagist. That's a person who loves delicacies. Thick dips such as cheese, chocolate, and hummus are safer with fewer bacteria. Salsa is runny, and so more bacteria can get back into the bowl. To take the hammer glamour or confusion out of it, think of it this way. Before you double dip at a party, you might ask yourself, do I want to kiss everyone here? Of course, that might depend on who's at the party.
It's Marching Neighborhood.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
And we're back, and I thank you for sticking around. We're speaking to Scott Krokoff, and Mike Dellosso is still here with us, and you're listening to Frankie Sense and More, and I'm your host, Frankie Picasso. So just before we went, Scott was talking about the creative process for him and how he is always on. He's always, writing. If he has a book, a ledger, a book he takes with us, and he writes stuff down or on pieces of paper wherever he goes. But for you, Mike, Scott, is it then the process to have the words and put the lyric and the melody to it, or is the melody there and you put your words to it?
That's a good question, and actually segue to the very next thing I was going to say. So,
okay, great.
The latter. I almost always do the music first. I think I'm probably in the majority of artists who do that, but not everyone goes that way. I know, like, a very famous duo of Elton John and Bernie Taupin goes the other way. He takes Elton John, Bernie writes the lyrics, and then Elton creates a song out of it. But what I do is I come up with the music first, and in conjunction with that, I come up with a melody, and I refine that. And I usually come with that most of the time. That is inspirational, and most of the time I come up with the final form or roughly final form pretty quickly. It's the lyrics that take me a lot longer, and often at times it takes, because I don't, I put a lot of effort into it. I want to, create some kind of story around it, and that takes a lot of time, and that's what often takes me months. Sometimes it takes me years, depending on the song. It's almost like a pregnancy of sorts.
Right. And, you have to birth it. So, I mean, with all writing, it's a birthing process, I think. It really is. And we'll talk to Mike about that in a few minutes again. But with your songwriting, now, have you been writing for a long time or playing guitar for a long time?
Yes. Yeah, I've been writing and playing for 20 years.
Okay, and so did your parents say to you, you're not going to be a musician, you have to make money, so go to law school, or was law also a passion for you?
No, it's not like I didn't get an ultimatum, if that's what you mean on that. But, I was raised to be responsible, and I actually was not. I never had aspirations to be a lawyer. I was a math major, believe it or not. I was actually initially went to school to pursue an engineering degree, but I learned pretty quickly I didn't really have the passion or the discipline for that either. And then I ended up majoring in math, and then I fell into law sometime later. I thought when I went to law school, I actually thought I would eventually become a judge, believe it or not. That's kind of what I was thinking I was going to do. Yeah. But what also another thing I thought about doing was tax law, because it's got similarities to math, and that's where I started out. Right. That's the field I started out in, and then I did that for several years, and then now I'm doing I kind of lateraled into another field called digital media, which encompasses a lot of different legal issues. But it wasn't, it's. I'll be honest, I'm more of the, I take my job very seriously. I've always done that. I have a very strong work ethic, but my passion is in my music. Yeah, and music I always
does require a good degree of, to be a good musician, if you're a mathematician, it really helps you out.
It does. Especially it's very structured, and a lot of people say math and music come from the same part of the brain, and it's very, music is, at least contemporary music, music like in the traditional sense as opposed to freeform. It is very pattern oriented. So I could see why there are similarities.
And timing, and just understanding time and how time works.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's right. Timing, chord structures. There is a logical sense to it, not just an emotional one.
So if you were to, close your eyes and rub your stomach and said, okay, Magic Genie, what I really want to do and be. Do you want to be a superstar on stage?
I think you know the answer to that. Well, yeah, I make no, bones about it. I'm very passionate about my music. I've kept it going for so long under, it's difficult circumstances sometimes in terms of, time. I have the same issue that Mike has in that regard. We're finding enough time to keep it going, but that is my ultimate dream, and I would love to have a full-time career eventually.
The folks on air, the folks who are listening now, weren't privy to our offline conversation, and that Scott is a dad as well, and he has was a 3 and a 1-year-old, or 4 and a 2-year-old?
4 and a 2.
4 and a 2, and Mike, of course, we know that he's got 5 children, and the last going from 17 to newborn. So that is pretty crazy. Everybody's a little, stressed for time. However, when you have a passion and you love doing what you do, you will make time for it, and that is, for sure the age old. Let's
right, I'll always.
I want to play a little bit of your other song, Sparrows, because it's very different from The Right Place. And let's just see, where you came from, and we'll talk about that, and we'll bring Mike into the conversation.
Don't ask me why I cry when the sky is blue. Don't ask me why I lie when I speak of you. Don't ask me why I hide when I see the morning dew. Oh, what they say about those growing pains are true. I try to listen for your call, wasting my time when it's not there, like the bird above that's standing on a wire. I can't bear looking down to see the concrete floor. I must find my nest. The sparrows want to fly away, hoping they can find a brand new day. Don't ask me why I run to where the sun goes down. I try.
Okay, and that's Sparrows, and that's also off your latest. Is that off your latest volume 2?
It is.
Yeah, it's a beautiful song, really beautiful song. So very different songs, different moods, different feels. What were you thinking? What was that about? Were you a little
that song,
depressed that day? Or something?
Yeah, that's not the only day I've been depressed and wrote a song as a result of it.
Mike, feel free to join in, and if you have any questions.
Yeah, this song is obviously, like, you could tell it's more in the James Taylor kind of finger picking sense, and it's about finding one's place in the world, using a bird's nest as a metaphor for that. Now, believe it or not, this is actually, even though it's on my latest record, it's one of my oldest songs. I wrote it. Yeah, I wrote it. It was one of the very first songs I wrote a very long time ago, and I've recorded a few times over the years. And in this particular latest iteration, it used to be a longer song, and I actually cut off a little bit that I thought was just a little extraneous, because I thought the song, frankly, was a little too long. Especially in this day and age in pop songwriting, and I think breathed new life to it. I think like a lot of other songwriters, initially when you write, you sometimes write a little bit longer, right? And then as you mature, as you continue doing it, you become a little more efficient with what you're trying to say and how you're trying to convey it. And that's a really
good point. And Mike, when you're writing a book, like, and I'm also an artist, I paint, and there's a point where it comes in your art and your writing and songwriting even, where it's done. And some people don't know when to finish, and they take it too far. How was it for you in the writing process?
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes along with that. Something that's, part of the art, it's never really finished. You can never say, okay, this is as, perfect as it's going to get. It never is. You can always fiddle with it. You tweak it. You do this and that. And I talk to so many writers at writer conferences, and they say, "Oh, I've been working on this book for 7 years," and sooner or later you just got to say, "This is it." It's finished. Because it's hard. When you're working with a publisher and they're giving you a contract and you got the deadline, that makes it easy because I can kind of plan it out. It takes me about 3 months to write the first draft, and then I'll spend another 6 weeks or so going over it before I have to send it in so that the editor can go over it. But I have a deadline. I have to be finished by a certain day. When you don't have a deadline, you can just keep fiddling with it. And there comes a time where you have to say, this is it. It is what it is. It's finished. It's as best as I can make it. Any change I make now is not making it change for the better. It's just making it change for change's sake.
Right.
I can tell you, recording a song is the same. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
You're making you could spend your entire life recording one song. You really can.
Yeah.
You could always question whether that was the right direction it was meant to go, or whether you want to redo a certain part, or whether you want to re-sing it. And it really does come to a certain point where you have to let go of it and say, this is it. It's good enough. I'm comfortable with it. And now I throw it to the wolves. I throw it to the public.
I mean, for some people, it's probably fear. Fear that, I'm going to show it to people and I'm going to get some feedback, and I'm not sure I want that. Or it's, they're perfectionists, or they're just really, they really don't think they're done. But sometimes you mess it up.
I think it's a bit of all that. I think it's a bit of all that, because I think as creators we definitely have perfectionist tendencies. We obviously want it to be as perfect as we envisioned it to be, but at the same time we do have that innate fear to some degree as to how people are going to react to it. Is this, I'm confident in it, but are my fans going to like it as much as I do?
Yeah. So. Mike, I want to know, how long does it take you to write a book? I mean, that's a pretty big book, Kill Devil.
The first draft is about 3 months, and that's writing 7 days a week. I shoot for about 1,000 words a day. So the first draft, and then I will go over it and over and over it for another 6 weeks or so. And then at that time, I have to say, look, it's as good as it's going to get, and it's time to send it off to the publisher.
Right.
Because they've already told me the publication, this is when it's coming out, and we need it by such and such a date, so the editors can go over it, and we can, get the marketing and the publicity engine going on it.
Well, we're about to go to our last break.
Yeah.
And when we come back, we got more stuff to talk about. Believe me, I got some questions for you. So don't go anywhere, folks. We've got two amazing artists with us, a writer, a songwriter. If you've ever wanted to do either or both, stick around. You're going to hear.
It's merging never hurt.
Do you like fair food? Liverworts, such as corn dogs, funnel cakes, and anything else you could put in a deep fryer. Liverwort is another word for food that has no nutritional value. This year I went to the Texas State Fair, where they were serving up fried King Ranch casserole, fried Thanksgiving dinner, and fried Nutella. The California State Fair boasts fried Krispy Kreme chicken sandwiches. What's a word for a person who loves a certain type of food to the point of madness? An opsomaniac. At the Iowa State Fair, you can enjoy a hot beef sundae. That's a big scoop of mashed potatoes over roast beef, covered with gravy, sprinkled with cheddar cheese, and garnished with a cherry tomato to look like a sundae. What's another word for messy food? My wallop.
It's merging never hurt.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Is it better to work out by yourself or to exercise with a workout partner? It really depends on your personal preference and what your workout personality is. Fitness Magazine polled its readers and found that 74% like to exercise alone. They preferred to work out with zero distractions. 14% liked group exercise classes, where they could be social butterflies. And then there were 12% who enjoyed exercising with a gym buddy, just one person that they worked out with. Personally, I like to work out solo when I'm doing my weight workout each day. I like to concentrate on my form, and I enjoy the alone time. But when it comes to cardio work, I prefer to work out with someone else. Engaging in a good conversation really makes the time go by faster for me. Find out your workout personality and what works best for you. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
And you're listening to Frankie Sense and More. I am your host, Frankie Picasso. I'm here with Mike Dellosso and Scott Krokoff. And I want to say Prokoff. Skip Prokoff.
You got it right. You got it right. Now you've been pronouncing it great. I mean, some people butcher it, and you've done a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We were just talking about music off air, and Mike was telling Scott how much he enjoyed his music. But Mike, you were saying before, when you write, sometimes you listen to music, and I was going to ask you, what music did you listen to inspire you?
Yeah, it really varies. Sometimes, usually music with no words, and it's usually soundtracks.
Okay.
Classical.
Classical
Last
music.
of the Last of the Mohicans soundtrack's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so kind of movie scores.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Scott, have you ever written a book, or did you want to write a book?
I've never written a book. I have thought about it. It's some kind of like it's something I like to do in the back of my mind. But obviously, my time is pretty limited to begin with, and any time I have now is for music. But I have thought about it. Maybe down the road.
Yeah, I interviewed this girl. She was in San Diego, and she wrote a book about musicians and their songs and stuff. And it's kind of cool, like, to do a song book of photographs and your music and the inspiration for that music. Writing is just incredible for me. But I wanted to ask you, Mike, your writing process. I know that we talked to Scott about the music comes first and then the writing. But when you structure your book, do you actually do like a framework structure, or do you just start writing and then say, okay, that's going to be chapter 3, or do you actually start at the beginning and go to the end? Like, I write self-help, so I kind of do it differently, I think.
Yeah, for nonfiction, you kind of have to plan it out, chapter for chapter.
Sure.
For fiction, there's two different ways to tackle fiction. One is with an outline, and the other one is just what they call shooting from the hip or seat of the pants. And that's me. I don't have the patience to sit down and write out an outline. And I don't know. I feel like
my own
fiction. Yeah, fiction is more of the creative fluidity of it, and so I kind of get an idea for where the story's going to start. I have an idea for the characters, and then I usually will have an idea where it's going to end, what the climax is, and then I'll just kind of, as I write, I just kind of make it up as I go. And again, I'm thinking about it during the day, so I'm always thinking, well, what's going to happen next? And then I'll kind of take the plot down a certain road, and now that's not going to make sense. So let's take it down this road. Yeah, that's cool. Let's do that. I'm constantly kind of doing that.
So when you start your book, do you know what the ending's going to be, or do you know? Okay, I'm going to do. I have a plot. This is my plot idea.
Yeah, I do. I know where it's going to start, and I usually have a really good idea for where everything's going to wrap up. It doesn't always happen that way, because as you go, this seems weird, but sometimes the characters will kind of
they take over,
come alive, and those are kind of do things that take you by surprise. And for non-writers, they think it's kind of weird, but it does. It happens.
They do come alive. And what about you, Scott? Like when you're writing a song and you've got the music, and like you say, okay, I'm going to write an upbeat song this time, or are you just doodling on the guitar and you go, oh, that's kind of a cool riff, and then it just flows. You go, yeah, I like that. That's going to be that kind of a song. Like how does it work for you?
Usually, it could be both. It could be either of those. A lot of it I've come up with just doodling, just noodling on the guitar, and all of a sudden you fall into something, and before you know it, you got some idea, then you throw a melody on it, and then that's I've come up with a lot of my songs like that. Sometimes I come up with it in my head, and I might not be home with the guitar, and I'll sing it some kind of melody on my phone, and then later when I go home, I'll flesh it out a bit more. And then sometimes you do have more of a focus, where you think, oh, I want to write more of a ballady song, or I wanted to try something more upbeat. But again, you still kind of will be just noodling or jamming, whatever you want to call it, and then you come up with with something more concrete.
Like,
and when it comes to my lyrics,
he just put out his latest CD. It just got done, and like I'll listen to his songs, and I go, you know what? Like, you've got too many songs that are the same beat. Like, you've got to make some slower, make some faster. Like, you got to do something different. So write a faster song.
That's a great point. I mean, there are times I've gotten that, I felt that way myself, or even someone might have said something like after a show, and I would think, I need to, vary it more, or I realize I might have certain song, a certain number of songs in a certain tempo already, and I don't really need to do that again. I do try to, every time I try to come up with a new song, I try to do something a little bit different, because I want the song to stand on its own. I don't want it to just be some repeat or some reprise or regurgitation of a song I already did, because it kind of takes away from the song beforehand. And I don't, as an artist, you always want to do something, new.
Okay, so here's a question for both of you. Is your favorite thing that you've written the last thing that you've written, or is it something different?
For me, it was my third book.
What was that book called?
That was Darlington Woods. And for me, I had, several years ago, I went through
Darlington Woods. Okay.
I was diagnosed with colon cancer. And following that whole thing of the chemo, surgery, blah, 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 that was the first novel that I wrote following that. And
I want to say I'm so happy that you made it through your cancer. Congratulations.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, I agree.
I'm sure you are.
It was a long battle. And following that, though, I wrote this book. And it's, suspense. But there's a lot of symbolism in it. A lot of symbolism about the monsters that we face in life. And I think it was a way subconsciously for me to kind of pour out all the struggles I had going through cancer and kind of pour them into this story. And I'm sure you've gone through things also in life, both of you, where you find inspiration in that. And it's almost a subconscious therapeutic kind of thing to write a song or to write a story about it.
Yeah, I can totally understand that. Definitely have to read that book. What about you, Scott?
I definitely, more excited, I think, of newer material, only because it is newer. It is fresher. You tend to you always want to know. You always want to feel like you're improving. For example, I have a brand new song out called Groundhog that I really like. It took me a few years to write it, actually, because I wrote it over the course of a few winters, and it's about, I use the groundhog as a metaphor for confrontation, and I finally got it done, and it's gotten really, really nice reception so far. But in terms of,
you didn't send me that song? Why did you choose the ones that you sent?
Well, those are recorded.
Easy to get to, or what?
This I just have a YouTube video live performance of. I don't have an actual recording of it yet.
Okay.
But I will be later this year. Otherwise, I would have sent that to you.
Okay, cool.
But yeah. But I also have I'm fans of. I definitely am proud of my older material. The songs I sent you, obviously. But I also big song I'm really proud of was a song called "I Got Nothing," which is also on my new record, which is about consequences of not taking risks. In particularly in this case, in the affairs of the heart. And what I really liked about this one is just how it came together, and in the sense that it had a different feel than a lot of my other songs. And that one has also gotten a really nice reception. So, but I think I'm like a lot of songwriters in the sense that you hope that your latest is your greatest, or at least that it's on the up and up.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of patience with creation. I like the end to come quickly. I like to see my finished product. So I paint really fast.
Yeah.
I write really fast. It's just exciting for me. I want to make sure that we get your websites in before the end of the show. We've got maybe about three minutes maybe left in the show. So, Mike, let's start with you. Your website is?
So it's my name.
Mm-hmm. So MikeDellosso.com, which is DELLOSSO.
OSSO, yes.
Okay. And that's Mike's website. You can get his books. You can get his books on Amazon. You can get his books, I'm assuming from his website. And you do workshops and teach writing?
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I did. Not a whole lot. I teach one college course a year, and I usually do 2 to 3 writers' conferences a year.
Nice. Okay. And Scott, your website is also your name?
Yeah, it's also my name. It's Scott with 2 T's, Krokoff, Krokoff. So scottkrokoff.com, and there you could read up about me. I have a music player there that highlights a lot of selected tracks, including off my latest record. And you could also access my YouTube videos and my upcoming shows and my social media pages.
Well, that's fantastic. And tomorrow, I know that you're going to be participating in the Naked Challenge Creative Summit, Day 5. You're going to be there.
Yes.
And if folks want to go to that, that's on blab.im, and you can check Scott out there. I know that.
Yes, I'm totally, yeah. And as Frankie, you can attest, I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I know you were excited for your day, which was day 2, I believe. So
I was day 2, and I got to co-host today and tomorrow, so it's kind of fun. I'm enjoying meeting everybody, so that's kind of fun too. And Mike, this is a summit for creative people who are authors and filmmakers and writers.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So if you're home and you can check it out, you should get on to Blab and check it out, because tomorrow is the real creative people, the actors and the musicians and
right
stuff.
Okay,
so it's kind of exciting.
Cool.
Kind of an exciting day. But I just want to say thank you both so much for coming on and being my guest today, and really just showcasing the brilliant talent that you both are, and just how much passion and heart you really have to put into writing a book and writing a song to make it, to be able to do it. And when people say, I don't have time, there's always time when there's passion, if you make it a priority.
Yep, I agree as well. I
always tell people when they complain about not having time, I say, you're talking to the wrong guy.
Yeah, you're talking to the wrong guy. Make sure you check out their book and their music. Go to their websites. Again, because it's just fantastic. You can find them again at thegoodradionetwork.com. I'll post where you can buy those. So thank you again. We're out of time, and bless you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Frankie.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie.
Thank you so much.
And great talking with you, Mike, as well.
The same here, Scott. Thank you.
One way to make me smile.